Welcome back to Gordon's channel. This is my first React tutorial and we will learn something very basic. We will learn the useState React hook and we will also try to build a simple counter as the demo to use useState. And I will also design this UI with JSX styling. So here is the demo code. So when I click run in the SoloLearn code playground, this will be the result. So we can have the plus button and the minus button. When we click the plus button, the counter will goes up and the displayed correctly. And if we click the minus button, the counter will go down and the display will be updated automatically. So this is a very simple demonstration. So I have put this source code in SoloLearn. So in SoloLearn, I have put the source code here. And we will be coding this simple demo in the development mode. So we will be using some React library and we will be using the Babel library. And this is the advantage that we can code in practice in the mobile. So if we install the SoloLearn mobile app, then we can practice anywhere. So let's get started. So first of all, we'll create a HTML file. And then we will create a template. So here, first of all, I will need to import the libraries. So thank you for Kelvin for providing this library. So the first one will be the development. The second one is the React DOM. So let's copy both scripts to our head. And we will also need to this one, which is the Babel. So it will compile the JSX syntax into the correct web files. So let's copy it and also paste it here. So now we have all the libraries imported and we can go to the documentary. So we can create a div with the ID app. So let's create this. And here we will want to put our script here. So we will want a script to run after we have the app DOM. So we will put the script at the end of the body. And for the script, we need a special labeling here. So we need to have the attribute, the type of text Babel. So the Babel compiler will compile this script. So let's copy this and put here. Type equals to text dash Babel. So we will be putting the scripts here. So let's so we will need the React DOM the render. So we will need to have the app element, and we will need to where we put this app. So we will need to have the React DOM the render. And now we need to build this app element. And we will be using React hook. So const app equals to. And here we need to put a div. So let's test it. Let's test it and see if this works. So let's put this in a browser. So let's put this in a browser and test it. Yes. So we can see that we have the test here. So this is, if we inspect it, we see that we actually have a div test add in the div add. So here what we need to do later is to add more. So now we are returning this one, and now we want to return something with a counter app. So we want to return a app called counter. And here we need to build counter. So const counter equals to another function. So we will be using the JSX syntax. and it will return a element. So remember, this must be a exterior container. Okay, so div dash div. So everything will need to be wrapped in a div. And here, before we do this, we need to have some syntax. So let's so at the end, we will return the div. But before that, we won't return it. So here now we want to have the use state. So let the cur index. So we will have a cur counter. Let's call it cur index, and then the set index equals to use state. And here we need to set a initial variable. So for example, 0. So let's try and see if this works first. So we want to put the cur index here. Okay, so we can auto format it with the Shift Alt F in VS Code. So let's try it. Yeah, so it is not working. useState is not defined, so we need to have react.useState. Okay, so now we have the displaying cur index here, and of course we don't want to display this text. We want to display the variable. So let's go to add the the bracket here. So when we add the bracket, it knows that you need to find this variable in this virtual DOM. So let's save it and let's run it again. So now we have 0 displaying. This 0 is our variable cur index, so it has a state of 0 at the beginning. So now we want to create a buttons. So let's create a button. For example, we have a add button. Okay, we can create outside the div because this div should contain everything for this counter. So we need to place here. For example, we can create a button, and let's give it a text. For example, add. And now for this button, we want to add a on clicks to it. So on click, and this one is so yeah, we want to define what we want to happen on click. So we need to use the set index. And for set index, the argument is a function. So we need to put the parameter previous value, and it will return the previous value plus 1. Okay, so let's save it and see, and reload it and see if it happens. Oh, it doesn't work. So let's check it and try to debug it. So if we go to the console, we can see that we have too many re-renders. So we can do it in this way. So we need to, instead of doing it in this way, we need to use the another function. So return the set index once only. So here, instead of doing set index, we should use another function and return set index. So let's save it again. And let's reload this. Yes, so now we have a add button. So when we click it, it will increment the state, the cur index. So let us try to break this down. So first of all, for the every React DOM, we need to return a div element. So we need to return one single parent element, and we need to use the parentheses to enclose it. And here we have two child here. The first one is a cur index state, so it will keep updating. And the second one is a button. For this button, we are adding the onClick attribute to it. And here we need to notice that this is a camelback because this is the JSX syntax. And when we hover it, it already tells us that this is JSX attribute. So we need to use the camelback here. So for the onClick, this one. Okay, let's format it in this way. Right, let's format it in this way. So for the onClick attribute, we need to put a function for the onClick callback. And this function, we don't need any parameter, but we need to return. What we need to do is we need to return once, which is the set index, called the set index function. The set index function is here. When we define the react.useState, when we call this react.useState, it will return a array. So the first one is the state name, and the second one is the function to update this state. So we need to call this function set index, which is defined here. So here we need to use the set index, and we need to pass an argument to it, and the argument to set index is a function. So this function, we have a parameter previous value, and we return the new value, and the main value will be previous plus 1. So this one makes the previous value be updated by 1. We put this function as the argument to this set index function. Okay, so this is the increment function. And of course, we also want to create a button which is to decrease the state. So let's call it decrease, and let's close the element. So if we check it, so we have the decrease, and if we click it, we don't have any update value now because we haven't added the onClick attribute to it. So let's go to do it, which is very simple and very similar to the add function. So remember, on and then camel case click, so equals to. We need to use a bracket here because this is JSX, and here we need to use a anomalous function. So we will have no parameter, but return. In the return, we call set index 1. And for this time, this parameter, we need to put a function as argument, and we have the previous as the parameter, and we will return the previous -1, which is the updated value. So let's save it, and let's try it. So if we refresh it, so it will pass the code again and label it again. So now if we click decrease, we see that the counter goes down, and we can click it a limited number of times because we haven't set any limit on it, because this is a very simple demonstration. So this is the basic part of useState. So we can, in a React element, we can use the React.useState, and we need to put the initial value in the useState, and it will return an array. So we use the square bracket to take both the per index and the state name, and this function to update it. And we will need to call this function, attach it in some onClick attribute. So this is a very simple counter demonstration. So this comes to the second part of our tutorial, which is to build a UI with the JSX syntax. So for example, I want to create this, put the buttons here at the bottom and put the numbers at the top. And I want it to size again because I don't know whether the user is using a mobile or using a desktop. So for example, it can be a landscape view. For example, it can be a landscape view such as the tablet or desktop, or it can be a mobile view. So I want it to size proportionally to the user screen. So I will use the JSX syntax to add the styling to it. So here, let's do this part. So let's try to design it first. So first of all, we have a screen, and I want to divide it into 2 parts. So here, this is the number, for example, and here I want to have 2 buttons. And this one is add, and this one is minus. So let's do this. So first of all, I will create another variable here, which is called styling. And this one, it needs to be a object. Okay, so First of all, let's try to do this without a styling variable. So for example, if we try to, so here for example, if we try to create a div, and then we put the current index inside. And now I want to say the style is equals to, and here I need to add the bracket because this is JSX syntax. So for example, I want the color to be red. Let's save it and let's try it. Okay, it doesn't work because I didn't put it in this way. So let's see. Let's see the error message and learn from the error message. So here it say that unexpected. It expect a bracket, closing bracket. So let's go to find it. So it doesn't expect a comma. Let's see. 1527. This here, it doesn't expect this one. So here, actually, this one is for the JSX syntax, and here we need to add another bracket to enclose it. So we need to put an object here. So we need double bracket if we are styling inside here. So let's save it again, and let's go to run the code again. Yeah. So now we can see that it becomes because I have a div element, so it goes to the block, and then this one becomes red. Because if we want to do it in inline here, we need to use double bracket. And if I want to take this out, I can put it here. For example, I can take this out and put it here as a property of this styling object. And here I don't need double bracket. I just need to put styling here. So this is another way. So if we run again, you can see that it becomes red also. So instead of inline, I prefer doing it here. And what I want to do now is, first of all, I need to build this one. So first of all, I need it to be full screen. So let me create. So let me make this a object of 2 layers. So I want to have many objects here. So the first one is I want it to have a full screen. And this full screen, it will contain a width of 100 viewpoint width and a height of 100 viewpoint height. But this is for the CSS styling. Because this is JSX, we need to put this as a string. So here we need to put this as string. So let's put this here. For example, I want to have a div with the style of full screen. See if this works. Okay. Let me see, it doesn't work. So let's go to check the console and find out the problem. So it said full screen is not defined. Okay, because we have a namespace. So instead of full screen, it cannot find it, but it can find styling.fullscreen. So let's add styling.fullscreen. If we save it and run it again, you can see that it has a full screen already. And we cannot see it because we need to add a border to see it. But now let me make it a grid. So I want it to be displayed upward and downward, split it into 2 parts. So let's make it 2 parts. So I want it to say up lower, for example, and let's use display, and I want to have a grid, so it will extend its element. And now I want to have a grid template column, grid template columns. I want this to be 1 frame only. So it will go to, so I need to add a trailing comma here, so I don't have error later. So let's save it. Let's save it and try to run it. Oh, it doesn't, nothing happened. So let me see, I want to have a display grid and I have grid template columns. So let's try to build a page source and see if we have something. Okay, I shouldn't click the page source, I should click inspect. So here we have a width of 100 field width and height of 100 field height. Okay, I have defined this styling, but I have not applied it yet. So here, if I want to apply two objects here, I can use the best operator. So I can say this is a new object. And here I have the property of styling.fullScreen as well as the property of styling.upperLower. Let's save it and let's see if it works. So let's run it. Now we can see that it becomes upper lower because we have three children. So we have split the whole screen into three parts. And we see that this exceeds the area a bit. So let's lower it to 96, 96 for example, 95 or 95. Okay. And yeah, now it doesn't exceed too much. And now I want to, instead of having three elements, I want it to be the number above and the buttons below. So let's redesign this structure. So instead of three elements in sequence, I want to have two children. So the first one is a div element and the second one is another div element. So the first one, it is actually this current index one. And the second one, oh, did I do something wrong? Okay, I should, let me see. Okay, I should be copying this one. Copy, cut, and replace it. Nice. And the next one, I want to put the buttons inside. So let's cut and put the buttons inside. And now I want to reformat it. Okay. So for this div, I have two children. The first one is the current index, and the second one are two buttons. So let's rerun it and see if it works. Oh, I have to save it first. Okay, and reload it. Now we have split it into two parts. And for this part, I want it to be as large as possible. So let me add a styling. For the styling, let's call it styling dot number. So I want to have a number here. And I want it to have a large font size. So remember, we need camel case here. For the originally it is font hyphen size, but now we need to use camel case. And I want its font size to be 33 min. So whichever smaller. And I want it to be a flex container. And I want it to have justify the content. So the middle. S. Center. And the align items center. So this should be making the numbers in the middle. Yeah. And I also want another styling for the buttons. So let's add a styling here. For the buttons. Let me call this styling.buttons. Okay, so here we need to add one more property here. So add a comma, buttons. And I want this to be a, let's see our design. So I want this to be a flex container. It has a direction of horizontal and I want it to be spaced around. So let's go to make it a display of flex. And I want it to have a justified content of space around. And I want it to be in the middle. So it want the align item centers. So let's save it and see if it works. Great. So now it is, we need to add the size to it. So let's try to add the size to these buttons. So I need to add a styling style equals to. Okay, I should use the bracket. So styling dot button. So I need to add the size to them. So for what I want to do is I want to make it enlarge and shrink with the screen. So it will be about 1/3 of the width and 1/3 of the height. So let's add the styling of button width. For the width, I want it to be 33 viewpoint width, and for the height, I want it to be 33 viewpoint height. So no matter it is landscape or portrait, it will be 1 foot. And next, I want its font size to be larger. So let's make it a font size of 33, which is ever smaller. So let's save it and run it. Oh, this is the SoloLearn code. Okay, I should run this one. I run the wrong one. Okay, so it is quite nice now. So I just need to change this. For example, I don't want to use add and minus, so I can change to sign. Yeah, almost there. So let me see. I want it to be aligning in the. Let me make it a flash with space between. And now it is keep stacking at the left because it doesn't have a full width. So we need to add a full width to the container of the buttons. So at this level, we need to add a full width to it. So let's add a width of 100%. So it will be the width of the parent div. So let's save it and run it again. If I save it, it doesn't 100% doesn't work. We can put 985 view width here. So let's try it again. If I save it, and run it again. Doesn't work. So how did I do it? So here I have the buttons and I have its parent, which is left right. So I look at the left right, have the flags and have space around and center. So the space around here, let me see if I have oh, I missed a hyphen here. So that's why it doesn't separate. So let me add it correctly, space hyphen around. So if we reload the code, now it is almost there. So this is what I want to achieve. So if I shrink it, if I make it a portrait view, then it will be resizing. So this is what I want to achieve. So thank you for watching this video. And if you enjoy this video, please subscribe and like. Thank you. Bye bye.